Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, a 28-year-old Uber driver met his ex-girlfriend during a ride. They fell in love and dated for 4 years, during which he learned she was cheating with a colleague. Heartbroken, he exposed their affair at her workplace, leading to her termination and her lover cutting ties. He feels betrayed and struggles with trust in future relationships. Now let's get into the story. I, 28 male, and my ex-girlfriend, 25 female, were a typical example of two lovebirds. I am an Uber driver and I have been driving for more than 6 years now. Through driving as a part-time job, I could assist myself financially through college and settle things in other areas of my life. My ex-girlfriend and I first met after she ordered a ride and I was her driver. We only talked a little that day because I had a policy of not engaging young female customers. Otherwise, we would get too close and they would always expect free rides. But later that night, after I got home and was cleaning my car, I discovered that she had forgotten one of those small-sized mail wallets in my car and had her ID in it. As soon as I saw her ID, I remembered her and called to tell her I found her wallet in my car. From how she responded, it was obvious that she had been looking for the wallet, and she asked if I could help her drop it at her house the next day and she would pay for the ride. I agreed to that, and the next day I drove down to her place and returned her wallet. It was late in the evening, and we talked over a can of beer. It was her way of saying thank you, but in the process of talking, we found out that we had so much in common. And I offered to be her personal driver just in case she needed to go somewhere. Long story short, from being her new personal driver, we slowly got closer to each other, and we started going on dates. We were both single at the time, so we didn't have any reason to hold back, and besides, we saw it as only getting to know each other and nothing more. But we didn't know that we would end up sharing the same bed a few times, and from there we would be in a relationship. We dated for 4 years, and even before our relationship was 6 months old, I had known her parents and the rest of her family members, and she met mine too. Our families knew we were in a relationship, but they kicked against her moving in with me until we were officially married. So, during our 4 years of being together, she could only spend the weekends and sleep over on some nights because her parents insisted that she live with them until I married her out of their home, so we had to respect that. Aside from getting her dream job, she got a promotion in less than 2 years of working with her organization, and this was great news for both of us. The only wrong side was that she had to handle more projects. And she had more workload than she used to. In her organization, there was this guy my ex-girlfriend used to talk about a lot. She talked about how intelligent he was and how the organization was so proud of him after he sealed a mega deal. And all I can remember was that she was so happy when she found out she had been paired with him to work on the project they were assigned. About a month after she started working on this project with her partner, I noticed many things had changed between us. First, she was always too tired to go on a date with me or come over to see me at my apartment like we agreed to twice every week. Also, we used to video call each other every day while working. It either had to be during her break time or mine, but after the project began, she stopped taking my video calls. Instead, she would text back and tell me she was busy and she would call me later, which she never did. When her attitude towards me kept getting worse, I felt it was because I had not made a move yet, especially since we had already dated for 4 years, so I bought a ring. I wanted to propose to her, so she wouldn't feel I was unserious. I intended to propose to her on her 26th birthday, but I found something shocking a week before her birthday. On that day, a customer ordered a ride to a fancy restaurant, and after I dropped the customer at the location at around 8 p.m., I saw my ex-girlfriend and her colleague from work coming out of the restaurant with a takeout bag. She was holding the bag, and he wrapped his right arm around her waist like they were a couple, and I felt butterflies in my stomach. They did not see me, and I watched them as they hopped into his car, kissed each other after they got in and drove away. Immediately they drove off. I followed them. He drove her to the parking lot of a hair salon. They stepped out and kissed. Then she got into her car and went home. I was heartbroken, but I had to put myself together, and I could take pictures of them kissing from where I parked my car. After they left for their different destinations, I sat in my car and laughed. It was a combination of tears and laughter, but I laughed the most. I was so pained that she chose to cheat and threw away everything we suffered to build. I had sacrificed a lot of things for her, but it seemed like that wasn't enough for her. The following day was one of the days we agreed she would be sleeping over. I called her to come over to my place because I needed someone to talk. I told her I was depressed, and knowing that I had issues of depression in the past, she came over. Throughout that night, I kept brooding over what I had seen but didn't confront her. Instead, I asked about her project and how everything was at work, as I always did. That night when she slept, I was able to unlock her phone and found chats between her and her colleague. There were chats of them saying things to themselves and even saying ill things about the company they worked for. The sweetest part was the chats contained their nudes, and I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my phone, then cleared the traces. Before she left for work the next day, I asked her if she could leave her new purse. I got it for her, so I could take it to the store and get the same one for my mom as her birthday gift, and she did. When she left for work, I printed many copies of the chat I took from her phone and went to the organization she worked for. Her colleagues already knew me, so they received me well. When I got there, they told me she was having a presentation. So I used the opportunity to share the chats with everyone, and they were all in shock. When she came out, she was concerned that everyone was glaring at her, and when I handed her a copy of the chat, she stood there dumbfounded. Without wasting time, I told her it was over, then asked her for her car key. I gave her my first car, and I walked out on everyone who gathered. She was very embarrassed, and she even tried to follow me. I was satisfied with her public humiliation, and I wanted her to have a taste of what it felt like to commit fully to something and have someone destroy it without thinking. She was eventually fired, as well as her lover, but he cut ties with her because he was already married, and he did not want her to ruin the rest of his life. When her parents found out what she had done, they were very disappointed, and they even tried to call me to work things out, but I blocked their numbers, including hers. I never saw her again, and I hope I never do. I still regret wasting my time, resources, love, and everything I did to make that relationship work. She hurt me so much, and up till now, I still struggle with the thought that every woman out there will treat me the same way she did. Today's second story. In this story, OP shares his heartbreak and disillusionment after discovering his wife's infidelity. Despite their athletic beginnings and strong connections, their marriage quickly soured within a year. Suspicions arose when his wife invited her gym trainer to their home, claiming it was for training purposes. With the help of a security guard, he uncovered the truth through incriminating photos. Faced with betrayal, he chose to end the marriage, prioritizing self-respect and closure. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 31 female, and I, 30 male, were together for 3 years and married for 1. We were both very athletic people. We actually met in a gym and started flirting immediately. It was so easy to be around her and talk. I never talked so much before I met her. We became best friends and lovers. When we got married, our parents were just as excited as us. My parents paid for most of our wedding and helped us purchase furniture and things to start off. A new gym opened by our house, so we got memberships right away. I was really optimistic and hopeful at this point in my life. I really had no idea how challenging marriage could be. After just 1 year of marriage, it was like the infatuation wore off, and we started to get irritated with each other. She felt like I wasn't opening up or communicating enough, but sometimes I just wasn't in the mood to talk. Nothing was bothering me. I just didn't have anything to say. We got through this once by talking things out, acknowledging our differences, and promising to focus more on each other's needs instead of our own. Then my wife suddenly started having her gym trainer over to our house twice a week. Her reasoning was that she'd hit a plateau, and bringing the trainer to her would help her to reach her new goals. Well, I wasn't born yesterday. We didn't have weights or machines in our house. I knew our relationship was getting older, and my wife was naturally a very flirty woman. I didn't want to be overly controlling and tell her I didn't want him in her house. I just wanted to see what she'd do with this freedom and trust. We had a hired security guard at our home, so I didn't feel overly anxious when I had to go to work. After the second week, she had her trainer at the house. I arrived home and asked him if my wife was behaving. He just shrugged uncomfortably. I asked him what he thought was going on, and he said he couldn't give me a fair guess because each time she had the trainer over, she sent him on a break. I was appalled. My wife was dismissed. The man that could tell me if she was cheating. I asked if I could pay him extra to keep an eye on my wife, even if he had to lie to her and pretend he was going on break. He agreed. It was nearly summer, so my wife had the side windows of the house open on the day. Our security guard snapped pictures for me. I was at work 4 days after I asked him to watch her when I received them. It was like a slap in the face. I didn't actually expect my wife to be sleeping with her trainer, but my small suspicion and bribery led to the brutal truth. I was being cheated on by a shallow, flirty, sleazy woman that I tried to call my wife. I trusted her and gave her everything I could offer, but it wasn't enough for her to try and live an honorable life with me as her husband. All these thoughts and more rushed through my head as I printed the picture evidence and drove home from work. I thanked the security guard with a wave the moment before I unlocked and shoved the door open. They must have heard the door unlocking, because they quickly got into positions that looked like training. With trembling hands and a faltering voice, I showed them the printed pictures of what they just done minutes earlier. The trainer's face turned ghostly white. He didn't want me to kill him, so ran out instantly and sped away in his car. My wife dropped to her knees. She said this was the first and only major mistake she'd ever made in her life. She promised that if I forgave her for this, she would become the perfect example of what a wife should be to her husband. I completely doubted this, but I'm not a very expressive person, and the level of emotion I was feeling was too much to bear. I reverted back to spy mode, knowing I wouldn't stay married to this woman. No matter what, she would suffer for this. I told her that only a loyal, good wife deserves the things I provided for her, like jewelry, a hairstylist, a car, high-end clothing and shoes, everything. So I packed it all away and locked it in the trunk of my car. It took all day, and my wife was sobbing almost the entire time. Even though she swore to do everything I asked of her, she didn't help me. I think she might have suspected I was going to divorce her, but she was too afraid to ask. She also didn't want to tell her parents anything about what was going on, because they raised her right. They wouldn't be dashing to her rescue just because she let another man inside her home. No responsible or honorable woman does that. She slept on the couch for a week without her normal routine or privileges. She actually cleaned a lot, in the hopes that would earn my forgiveness. While she scrumped the floors like Cinderella, I plopped divorce papers down. She really lost it. When she realized none of her begging and sobbing worked on me, she left the house to call her parents. They came and got her, but only long enough to lecture her, buy her some Walmart clothes, and bring her back to my house. It was humorous and frustrating at the same time. Eventually, the divorce was done. Throughout the process, she was sleeping on the couch of our home until she was ordered to leave. She tried asking if she was entitled to half of my business, and the judge laughed at her. He shook his head and told her she had a lot of growing up to do, that she lost a great man and provider because of her actions. She didn't even have enough patience in our marriage to ensure she was entitled to half my business upon divorce. She made it clear that she wasn't very bright, and she only thought about herself.